There's one feature on my controller that I never used. It's fiddly, hard to remember, and really easy to mess up. I'm talking about the key shift mode in Rekordbox. When it's done right, it can add extra creativity to your sets. But unless you understand music theory, it's way too easy to get it wrong and sound terrible. So I had a thought, what if I could change this feature so there were no wrong notes? This is only going to work on controllers that have access to pad mode. If you aren't sure if you have that, just plug in your decks and see if the pad mode icon at the top of Rekordbox lights up. Even if you don't have access to pad mode, keep watching because I'm going to help you finally understand how this feature actually works. Key shift mode simply takes the track and pitches it up or down using the pads, changing its key. But there's something deadly lurking beneath this feature, and that's why it can easily ruin your sets. All music has a key. Some keys can also be flats, which have a little B next to them, or sharps, which have Twitter hashtags. Rekordbox will work out the key for you when you analyze your tracks. To make sure this is turned on, go to Preferences, Analysis, and tick Key. Right-click on your column headings and make sure key is showing. For DJs, the main thing you need to know is whether a key is major or minor. For this demo, I'm going to use traditional music keys. Minor keys have a little M next to them, and major ones just have the letter. If you're using the Camelot system, then anything with an A after it is a minor key, and anything with B is major. Now, when you know the key, you can work out what notes will sound good with it. That's called a scale. Scales are just notes played at a specific interval. They repeat every 7 notes going up or down an octave. If you go up or down an octave, it's the same note, but it's pitched either twice as high or twice as low. This is actually way easier to understand if I show you on a tiny instrument. You may have noticed when I was doing that, I didn't just play the notes that were next to each other on the fretboard. That's because scales follow a specific pattern, and that pattern is different for major and minor keys. Once you know these scales, you can start to create melodies over the top of music in a certain key. They move up or down in things called semitones. A whole step means you go up 2 semitones. On the uke, that means you go up 2 frets. On key shift mode, it means you go up 2 pads. A half step means you go up 1 semitone. That's 1 fret on the uke or 1 pad. The scales for the major and minor keys are made of different patterns of these movements. Are you starting to see the reason why key shift mode is so easy to get wrong? Some of the pads will not correspond to the key the music is in. If you play a note that isn't in the right scale, it will sound bad. So how can we make this easier? As we've seen, there's 2 different patterns for minor and major keys. Fortunately, we've got 2 pages of pads we can use on the controller. I'm going to program 1 page of pads for the major scale and 1 page of pads for the minor scale. First, plug in your decks. Click the pad mode at the top of Rekordbox. Go to key shift mode and change the drop down to one of the user settings. This lets you customize and overwrite what the pads do. I've got some other stuff mapped, so I'll use user mode 4, but you can use whichever one you want. The top 8 boxes are for the first page of pads, and the bottom 8 are for page 2. Let's map the major scale first. I'm going to start at the top left and make that one my root note. Click the pads, go to key shift mode and choose 0. Then all we need to do is follow the pattern for the major scale and map it to the pads. Remember, a whole step means we move up 2, and a half step means we move up 1. Now we just do exactly the same for the minor scale on the bottom 8 pads. Here I've only mapped an ascending scale, means we're going up an octave. I found that works well in most scenarios. I've loaded in a sample which is just a piano playing a C note. Watch the key in Rekordbox as I move through each of the buttons on the pad. That's our C major scale with no wrong notes. Now let's change the page on the pads and play the minor scale. But you might want to add a descending scale as well. You can map the 2 scales like this. Anthony from Fingering Hoe in Essex asks, Chris, can I use MIDI mapping if I don't have access to pad mode? Well, Anthony, I spent a lot of time looking into this. The problem is the scales share some notes, and you can only map each one once. So you can do it for 1 scale, but not both. Paula from Wetwang in Yorkshire asks, Chris, couldn't you just do this in keyboard mode? No, Paula, don't be so silly. If you remap keyboard mode, you lose the ability to trigger the hotkeys. As a workaround, I just set a loop around the sample I want to play around with. Pop on a cheeky bit of echo, and it works pretty well. There's another really powerful Rekordbox feature I didn't even know was there. Check out this video next where I show you how you can save hours creating DJ edits and remixes without even leaving Rekordbox.